This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson, and joining me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are doing our center rankings for the 30 starting centers in the NBA. We're going 30-1. It's going to be a fun time, but before that, we want to interject and say, go check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you want to skip all of this, then I'll put a timestamp down in the comments so you guys can skip it. But we want you guys to go check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast, because if you guys do go over there, we got some cool stuff for you. We got a monthly podcast, either audio or video, depending on which tier that you do choose. We also have the thing that I think Fast Break viewers is going to love. The $10 kind of mark right there is the call-in guest. So if you donate $10 a month, or you can do it a one-time payment of $10, you can be a guest on any podcast, whether it's the Onside Kick, the Fast Break, Primetime Podcast, Rick and Johnny.
But if you keep doing it every month, that means you get to be on the podcast every month.
Exactly.
You could cycle.
And the reason why I'm saying this for Fast Break Podcast is because Ricky is hated by you guys. So if you guys want to actually get Ricky off the podcast, you guys can go to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Anyways, let's jump in now, guys, to the first half, or the first first third of our rankings, and let's jump in. Number 30, we have Joakim Noah of the New York Knicks. Number 29, we have Timofey Mozgov, now of the Brooklyn Nets. Number 28, we have Zaza Pachulia of the Golden State Warriors. 27, we got Mr. Reliable, old man Jenkins out there, Tayson Chandler from the Phoenix Suns. Number 26, the man who just got paid by the Atlanta Hawks, Dwayne Dedmon. Number 25, we have Willie Cauley-Stein from the Sacramento Kings. Number 24, we have Greg Monroe of the Milwaukee Bucks. Number 23, we have Robin Lopez of the Chicago Bulls. 22, we have Clint Capella of the Houston Rockets. And rounding out this first third of centers is Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Ricky, I'm going to go to you first, since
I want to say one thing first.
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious about our rankings?
What's that?
This year, Timothy Mozgov ranked right there, solid 29. Me and Sean have him at 29. Dave has him at 30. Same as last year. Former Bull behind him. Last year, Amir Sheik. And it's the exact same. Dave had a Sheik one higher than Mozgov, like he has Noah, and we had Noah and a Sheik lower than Mozgov.
So Mozgov is consistently the second worst starting center in the league.
And it's just a former Bull behind him.
I honestly think he's probably better than that, but it just kind of is where he lined it out, you know?
Well, I mean, with Timothy Mozgov, and we'll jump in. Ricky, I'll go to you first, since this might be your last podcast with that Patreon call-in segment. With that, I mean, Timothy Mozgov now going to Brooklyn. Are you expecting anything really out of him? I mean, he got paid.
No. I'm not expecting anything, because the contract, like last year, it was all about, man, that contract with L.A., and he got overpaid. This time it's like, yeah, he's going to the Nets, and I know the Nets are a bad team, but they've got other options, and they don't need to use Timothy Mozgov. I think he was just you know what, we're going to take him on to get Brook out of town.
Well, and to get D'Angelo in town.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they literally have to have a starting center with Brook out of town, so I mean, it's not like they aren't going to use him. They're going to use him, but it's kind of like he's just going to be there.
He is the starting center.
He's just going to be there. In my mind, it's like, okay, Timothy's there, and I'm focusing more on like Jalen and Russell.
With Timothy, are you expecting anything, Dave?
I mean, to describe anything, yeah, I think he's going to...
I mean, outside of moving around the court.
Yes, he will exist on the court. He will put effort into the game. No, I think that he and D'Angelo... I think that they'll be able to play off each other a little bit. Obviously, you don't have, Brooks' ability to stretch out to the 3-line. So he's more of a traditional center. He's not bad. He's not good. He's just, well, he's not great. Mm-hmm. He's not very good. He's just passable as a center.
Is he passable?
I think he's passable.
I mean, there's definitely some backups that I think are better than Timothy Mozgov.
I mean, there's that argument.
But I mean,
the Nets.
The Nets don't have one. So, I mean, and looking at these guys, at least Timothy Mozgov and Joakim Noah, I mean, Noah's been plagued by injury, and even with that, he's not the same player he used to be. I mean, Joakim Noah used to be a stopper defensively, and now with his injuries and just really his lack of anything on the court, I mean, it's pretty fair to rank him last, right?
Yeah, he's a complete shell of himself.
A shell of himself.
I mean, I
look at it, and that's what I see.
You rank Noah above Mozgov. Is there any reason, or was it just because
purely off the fact that I'm assuming, like, Jared Allen's going to take the job from Mozgov within like the first half of the year?
That was the other thing, is that one of the better backup centers in the league
is one of the guys we were highest on coming out of the draft.
No, is actually the backup center in Brooklyn.
Oh, true.
So one of the better kept backups is in Brooklyn.
I mean, look, a healthy Noah is. I know it's not existent right now.
Yeah.
If you could get Noah anywhere close to healthy, he is a good contributor. He has good hands to pass the ball. He can't shoot the ball. We all know that. But at least he will give you a level of toughness, a level of defense, and good passing out of the post. So, yeah, if he's healthy, I don't think he's the worst option in the world. But that contract is just awful.
That's the key point. We're going to get to that
You can ask us that 7 times about healthy.
Is a little like foreshadowing because later in the podcast we're probably going to talk about health as well when it comes to a certain someone. But in my mind, I look at it and I see that's the main reason why I put Mozgov ahead of Noah. You can't. Yes, you can do all these great things, but if you're not on the court, then it makes it null and void. And it's pointless to have you ahead of someone if you're not going to be on the court.
And before we move on away from Noah, one guy I want to bring up is Willy Hernangomez. Again, talking about backup centers. I mean, you're a big fan of Willy Hernangomez. Apparently, just shined in the Euro League over in the Nationals they got going on. So do you think there's any chance that even if Noah stays healthy, that Hernangomez might surpass him?
Yeah, I think there's absolutely that opportunity. Look, this is not, the clear starter role. This is... Unfortunately, New York is not a good team. They aren't going to be this year. It's a timeshare position because Kyle O'Quinn, for budget, is excellent for what he gives you. Hernangomez, I think, has a great top end that's above, obviously, both of these guys where they're at right now in their career. So I could see Hernangomez, Porzingis, like they're totally just going to go full Euro route here, and it's going to work out, in my mind. That's how it works.
And moving away from Euro, Ricky, I want to go more into your wheelhouse, and that's the Chicago Bulls. We got 3 guys in this first third that are former Bulls. Tyson Chandler, Joakim Noah, who we just talked about, and now current Bull, Robin Lopez. You had Robin Lopez the highest out of all those former Bulls.
He naturally, and I still think I had him a little bit too high at 20.
Yeah, he comes in at 23. So, I mean, you did have him at 20. Why did you have him that high? And what do you think Robin Lopez can at least do for the Bulls this year?
I just don't think, I looked at everything compared to everyone else, and it's like the 2 guys I had him around were like Gasol and Noah, and I'm just sitting there going, and I'm looking at Robert Lopez, I'm like, he wasn't terrible. Like he was one of our better players when we needed somebody with that Bulls team. Not like he's not better than Rondo or anything, but he was reliable for us. And I put him at 20, and I still thought to myself, I'm like, maybe I should put Noel and Nurkic ahead of him just because it's like he's not a guy where you're like, man, Rolo's my center. Let's go. But like with this Bulls team and where we're at, I'm like, I'm not mad that he's on the team being our starting center. I mean, he's better than Campaign at the point guard.
Well, in Campaign, now there's talks that he could get released.
Two practices, that's all it took.
Yeah, and think about this. Think about this with Campaign. You traded Doug McDermott, Taj Gibson, and a pick for nothing. I mean, you got Joffrey Laverne might even still be around before Campaign. And Campaign was the focal point.
We got Garpax.
At least he didn't walk for nothing, though. We didn't get Taj to walk for nothing.
I can't wait until they fire. Yeah, you guys are
idiots. I think you're right, though, about the consistency. Robin Lopez is nothing if not consistent. His play is solid. He's an energy guy. Again, that's why we got him. He was kind of like our, we love Noah. We
he even
walked
got
away from
suspended
Noah.
Because of that energy.
True.
Which I loved, by the way.
The problem is, though, we're never going to feature him in an offense.
No.
So he's never going to have amazing stats. Like you said, even if there's nobody around, I don't see him putting up much better than he does.
Well, and the one thing I want to bring up is that point of energy. And these guys, at least in this first third, at least some of them have either brought energy before in the past or are currently bringing energy. I mean, you look at Tyson Chandler. He was always a great defender in the middle of the paint. And he always brought that. You always saw Tyson Chandler just pumped up and leading on the court there.
Yeah.
You talk about Noah. Noah was always a leader for the Bulls. Zaza is the guy, the enforcer out there, throwing chop blocks and kicks.
And MVP of this, without Zaza, they don't win the finals.
Yeah, because Kawhi knocks him out.
Yep.
I mean, really, the only guy I would say that doesn't bring a ton of energy is Greg Monroe. But at least with that energy point, I mean, how much of it is energy with these guys? Like Tristan Thompson, I mean, this guy made probably $57 million off energy alone. I mean, how many guys are here that are actually talented, and how many guys are here for big bodies and energy, Dave?
It's mostly energy guys, mostly like specialist roles. I think Tristan Thompson fits a unique niche because he was in the right place at the right time. Like being with LeBron got him paid. I don't think on many other teams he gets that role he was in. He had an amazing playoff performance a couple years in a row where, I mean, he just grabbed every single board. He was vicious around the net. I mean, it was fantastic. But the problem is he doesn't give you that every night. And you go in stretches where you can't even have him on the court because he's just that bad.
And that's what you saw really for most of the playoffs this year. He wasn't good in the playoffs. And that's why I think he's this low with us. I mean, Tristan Thompson, this was a guy that we thought was going to be a focal point of the Cavs and at least going to help them overcome the Warriors.
Right.
And he was nowhere to be seen. And so, I mean, with this, I mean, a lot of these guys, if that energy isn't there, or that that energy that helps them grab boards or block shots isn't there, they're really pointless. And I mean, there's some guys here, Ricky, that I want to bring up. Clint Capella, Willie Cauley-Stein, and then I want to throw Dwayne Dedmon in there because Dwayne Dedmon finally had a good year in San Antonio, was finally able to get out of the D-League and finally show what he had, and is able to get paid in Atlanta. So one, is he going to be able to carry that over? Willie Cauley-Stein, second year, he just got done with the second year in Sacramento. He's now stepping into the starting role and now going to get a lot of minutes. And then Clint Capella, a young guy as well, but he really doesn't fit into the Houston Rockets offense, at least where they're shooting threes. He does fit on that team, at least as a defensive guy and a guy that can at least clean up around the middle, very efficient. But are there any of these guys that can make that jump, Capella, outside of energy?
And I was actually thinking of this before you actually asked it. Was Clint Capella's my guy sitting at 22 in our rankings that could make the jump into the 20s? And I know I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to say who could fall out in the top 20s. But I mean, like Willie Cauley-Stein, I want to see more from him. Like on my personal rankings, having him at 27, I was like, that's kind of low. Like I feel like that's kind of low for Cauley-Stein. But I was like, you know what? Like you said, stepping into that starter role. This Kings team is going to be different this year, and this Kings team is going to have, I kind of want to use the word hype. They're going to have a little bit of hype with them this year, and fans are going to expect them to be a better team. So those are the two I'm leaning with. Dedmon, I mean, it's going to be interesting to say. You say the Spurs, and part of me says that's a really good system, and if you can buy into that system, that's what makes you successful.
However,
because he's on the Spurs East.
Yeah,
he's going to Atlanta now. So I mean, at least
it's a solid fit for him. But his age is the thing. It's like, look, you obviously spent your time, you did your dues, you've improved as a player enough to make it as a starting center in the NBA to get that big contract finally. But honestly, because I don't see a ton of upside left in him, and maybe he'll surprise me. But for me personally, it's all about Willie Cauley-Stein, Thrilly Cauley-Stein, whatever you want to like. I love this kid coming out. He was super raw, but he had the length, he had the athleticism, he had speed to run up and down the court for days. I mean, he was pretty much just a raw package that I absolutely loved. And they were, early comparisons with like DeAndre Jordan, and I saw why, but the impact he made after Boogie left, I mean, he was putting up like 13, 8, and 2. I mean, or 13, 8, 3, and like a block and a block and a half a game and almost a steal game. Like he was phenomenal for them.
Well, and then when you look at PER, which is a stat we like to rely on at least a lot.
It's a general,
advanced metrics. He was a guy that was above an average center. I mean, and it really, you look at his stat line, it's something that jumps off the page, but it's really about what he brings to the court, and then also what he did bring to this team after DeMarcus left. Because DeMarcus was a guy that was going to be your big body. He was going to be your enforcer, and Willie Cauley-Stein still brings some of that tenacity and some of that energy as well. But he brings something that Boogie didn't bring, and that's speed. And when you're going younger, that's something that I think is a great thing for the Kings. And again, I'm just in the same boat as you were. I mean, you ranked Willie Cauley-Stein the lowest out of all of us.
Yeah.
I had him at 22. Dave had him at 23. But I also thought he was going to be higher because when I first started it, I had him around like 15.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at his numbers, and I'm like, all right, well, he's limited offensively. I mean, he's a guy that, like DeAndre Jordan, he's going to make most of his money either grabbing offensive boards and put it back up, or he's going to work on pick and rolls going towards the net. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to give it down low in the paint, and he's going to work, his body around, and he's going to throw up a hook shot. I mean, he's still developing that part of his game.
Right.
And then defensively, I think positioning has to deal with it a little bit as well, but there is still that potential. So, I mean, he's a guy that I think for sure him and Capella are guys that are going to jump in because
Capella will be interesting though too because like we're talking Willie Cauley-Stein and like how potentially better the Kings might be when they're going younger.
Absolutely.
But Capella is going to be able to play with. They went and got Chris Paul. Their goal, and that's the Rockets, is to challenge the Warriors. It's what are you going to bring? And when we play the Warriors, are you going to give us solid minutes and help us win? Or are you going to be like Tristan Thompson, and it's like, we can't have you out there with the Warriors?
Well, and one thing with Clint Capella that I want to ask both of you is, do you feel like now, even with Chris Paul coming in, do you think he's going to see more looks, or do you think he's kind of limited in the set he is in? Because he's not a guy that's going to be, part of that run and gun 3-point style up and down the court.
Right.
But do you think this could be a guy that could be in the top 20 if he's not playing in Houston and not playing in that system? Or do you think he's a nice fit in Houston and in that system because he is long, he is young, he is athletic, and he can run up and down the court and at least, surround the basket, grab offensive rebounds when a shot's long, and then able to put it back up and be efficient around the net?
Yeah, I absolutely think he's a benefit. He benefits just absolutely a huge amount from being in the system because it's very similar to how DeAndre Jordan was able to thrive in that system with Chris Paul. And this Houston system is even better for him because he is literally the one guy in the paint. There's no crowding in the paint in that system. Everybody, it's all 3-ball or it's within 3 feet of the net. Like that's it's an extremely efficient system.
And he's got 2 guys who can be point guards and pass him the ball.
He has Chris Paul, who worked with DeAndre Jordan, and we watched what he did last year with James Harden. Like I think that he is perfect where he's at. I think he might see an uptick very slightly in usage, but it's still kind of questionable to see. I don't know if he's going to make that big of a jump. I think kind of where he's at, it's perfect for him, but I don't know that there's that much growth out of him in the future.
Do you think, though, that maybe in the playoffs he's going to be that useful? Can he be a useful asset at all, or is he still like the 5th option on this team because of the way that they play? I mean,
I'm not saying 5th option, but...
Well, at least out of the starting lineup. I mean, they're going to go to Chris Paul and James Harden above.
Eric Gordon was even above him. Trevor Reese is
I'm saying in the starting lineup he's going to be a 5th option because Eric Gordon's coming off the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unless they really want to set the tone for the game, and they might want to, if they see Zaza as somebody they can take advantage of, and Clint Capella has done that in the past, it's just how do you keep pace when you're trying to feed the ball down low to the post, and the other team's just jacking up threes from the outside? It's like, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but like it's the old Jordan days from the early 90s where they really wanted to force the game through the paint early on in the game to set the tone, and that gave Jordan the ability to absolutely flex the ball on the outside, run his game. But you have to be aggressive early on, and you have to make sure that you get physical with Capella down low. Otherwise, the other team doesn't respect it, and he doesn't get as good of looks, and the outside becomes a huge problem for them.
Well, and the one thing that I want to bring up about all these guys, I mean, none of these guys, at least from, I would probably say, maybe Clint Capella and maybe up to all the way where we have, I would probably say like Paul Gasol. None of these guys really separate themselves.
I mean, it's a very close grouping, yeah.
It's really how you fit, and then also...
And preference.
Yeah, and preference. I mean, this is a lot of our opinion. I mean, this is all of our opinion. I mean, we...
Statistically, it's fairly close, yeah.
And even statistics, I mean, that doesn't tell the whole story. Because, I mean, even when you look at defensive metrics, like, those aren't even perfect. And there's no really stat-defining, that defines defense. I mean, you can look at steals and blocks, but even then, that's like right time, right place. And even if you're a big guy who has a long wingspan, you can just stick your hand up and stuff a guy like Isaiah Thomas and really stuff the stat sheet. So I think it's a lot of these guys. It's preference and it's how you fit the system. And I think that's something where Clint Capella might be held back because he is a young guy. He does fit the system, but that system doesn't benefit big men.
Interject really quick is the one guy we're kind of overlooking. I don't know what his role will be in the future, but how are they going to fit ZQ into the system? Is he going to play more of the power forward and be outside? Is he going to be a center? How are they going to fit him in, and how is that going to affect Capella?
Well, Dave's a ZQ expert.
If he gets court time, which is a big if this season.
I mean, do you think he's going to get court time at all? Because he's a young guy that was drafted,
he's super young.
2 drafts ago, right?
Not this past draft.
Yeah, so it was the first draft we covered.
Yeah,
so it was 2 years ago.
I think so. I honestly think that
2016.
Oh, it was 16. Yeah,
43rd overall.
Well, it would be 2 years ago because 2017, 2016.
So amazing shot, super soft hands. The problem is he really needs to muscle up. He's still really young though. That's the upside. Look, you've got a 7-footer with really good hands and a really good shot. I think he is going to kind of become the Rhino replacement over time because they got rid of Decker. So I think they really need to keep that outside shooting a main priority for this team. I don't see him taking that step this year. I think, he'll get some minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if he averaged like 8 minutes a game, and he probably won't see time in the playoffs unless they're like dire situation again. But I think he's something you can look forward in the future because he could be like the new mold for how you want a big to be in the NBA, and you got him for dirt cheap. Yeah,
you got him 43rd overall pick, and he just signed back on the 6th, so he is going to be coming over. He was the defensive player of the year back in the China League in 2017.
2-time block leader too.
2-time block leader as well.
If you watch him, he's not like a normal big. Like he still moves like he's smaller. He has good agility for his size. The one thing you have to just know is you look at him, he looks like a twig still.
Is there a guy that you could compare him to? I mean, if there is a guy, I mean, you could even stretch it Like, is there a guy that you watch and like maybe he reminds me of X or Y?
I mean, like if you look at, and this is probably a bad comparison, but like the old like Monte Ball, like he's not as big as him.
Manute Bol?
Yeah, thank you. I was like, my pronunciation's
Monte
awful.
Ball.
Monte Ball. I don't know where I was going with that.
Manute Bol.
Manute Bol. He has a similar frame to him where it's completely, I'm way too big for my body kind of an issue, but he has a touch. He can shoot from 3, which is the same thing he brought. So honestly, that's the one thing, and that's probably older than most of our viewers. So
Dave was thinking of old Denver Bronco running back Monte Ball.
I love
There we
Monte
go.
Ball.
there we go.
He was from Wisconsin, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he was.
He was a practice squatter for your team too.
The Pats?
Yeah, 2015.
Was he also no Monte Ball? Who's the guy that was the? Did he?
He wasn't the crier.
But that was no Sean Marino.
Yeah.
Monte Ball set the NCAA record for most rushing touchdowns.
I
Didn't he?
think, and then another Wisconsin back broke it.
It was
Yeah,
Melvin Gordon.
77.
Yeah, and then Melvin Gordon broke,
Yeah.
didn't he? Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. This is an
No.
NBA podcast. Anyways, there's not much to talk about in 21 to 30.
The
anyways.
last thing I want to throw out about
Yep.
ZQ and why I like him so much now is fellow Capricorn, so got to respect that.
What?
Ran a fact. Yeah, birthday's January 16th, right next
Trying
to
to
mine.
like claim some
Who
ability.
cares about astrology?
I do. It's all about the Capricorns.
When have you ever cared about astrology?
I just like
I've known
being
you
a
for 3
Capricorn.
years and you've never brought up astrology. But anyways, let's move on now to 11 through 20, and let's jump in at number 20. We have Marcin Gortat of the Washington Wizards. Coming in at number 19, we have Nerlens Noel of the Dallas Mavericks, the $72 million man. What was he? What did he turn down or allegedly turn down?
Way too much money.
Yeah, and he accepted a qualifying offer for $4.7 million. So
Smart move by his agent there.
Yeah, Nerlens needs to fire his agent. Anyways, going to number 18, we got Nikola straight up for Draymond Green Vucevic from the Orlando Magic. Then we have number 17, Steven Adams of the OKC Thunder. Then number 16, we got Pau Gasol of the San Antonio Spurs. Number 15, we got Jonas Valanciunas, JV from the Toronto Raptors. Number 14, we got Yusuf Nurkic of the Portland Trailblazers. And number 13, we have Dwight Howard now of the Charlotte Hornets. Number 12, we have Andre Drummond of the Detroit Pistons. And number 11, rounding out the second third of this ranking, is Miles Turner of the Indiana Pacers. And guys, we are back now after that lovely graphic. And I want to talk about one guy first, and it's Yusuf Nurkic. And Dave, I'm going to throw it to you first. Yusuf Nurkic coming in at 14. I feel like it's a little bit low for him. After the season he had with Portland, after being traded from Denver to Portland, I feel like it's a little bit low for him. I feel like he should be a little higher.
To be fair, he did get injured, which led to some concerns. But again, this is a very positive way to look at it. The thing is, when he came to Portland, he kind of turned their season around a little bit. They were kind of fading a little bit out. He gave them a shot in the arm. He's a very passionate guy. He was kind of, I don't want to say kicked out, but basically the whole reason why he left town was he wanted to be the guy, and he wasn't. And
Well, that was because Nikola Jokic was above him, and Jokic was kicking ass.
Exactly. But what you do get with Nurkic is defensive monster down low, and somebody who excellent on the boards, excellent getting the ball back out to people, and a decent shooter. He's not going to wow anybody with it, but decent enough.
But you also need to be a shooter when you have CJ and Dame out there.
I was going to say, like, literally, that's the last thing Portland needs is another shooter. They didn't have enough shots for the guys anyway. So I just think his impact was more than what was on paper. That's one of those guys where I want him to be higher, but I want to watch him play out a full season, because when he was in there for the last, 30 games of the season?
20.
20
Started
games?
19, played 29.2 minutes per game.
Yeah, I mean, he was something else.
Shot 50% from the field, 15.2 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, had 3.2 assists per game, had 2 blocks per game, and 1.3 steals. He was everywhere.
What a bargain for them, too.
And I feel like he should just be higher. I mean, I look at Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard has not brought anything like that in the past 3 years, and somehow he's higher than Yusuf Nurkic.
Here's the thing about Dwight, though.
What?
When
is the last time Dwight Howard cared?
No. I'm not saying that
I know.
last year was any good for Dwight. And this is the one thing I brought into Dwight, because I personally had him in my top 10. I had him at 9.
You did.
And the reason why is Dwight is someone coming into this year where I feel like he's going to have the best year we've seen since he was in Orlando, because he's being
said
spared.
that last year.
Yeah, no. But this time he's actually being paired, like a coach that actually knows him and knows how to use him, went out and traded for him. Like,
we said that
the Lakers didn't know how to use him. We thought that going home would help, but that didn't help because the Spurs light in the East. didn't really help him. This is a coach in Charlotte, I almost said Houston, in Charlotte, where he is going to be able to work with a coach that knows him, and that's why I think he's going to be a little bit better this year than we've seen in the past.
And I'll give Dwight credit. He was still efficient from the field, 63% from the field. He still grabbed over 10 rebounds per game. He still scored around 13 points per game. But this is not a guy that is exciting me anymore. He has a nice per at 20, but that's because he's grabbing a ton of boards. I mean, these numbers are inflated.
All you need him to do.
When was the last time Dwight Howard has cared about basketball? I feel like it hasn't been since Orlando.
Kobe pretty much took that out of him.
And I haven't seen it come back from him.
Yeah.
And we talked about he's going home to Atlanta. He's going to care. Atlanta didn't want him anymore.
No.
They traded him away for pretty much nothing. They didn't get anything back from him. And this was Dwight Howard, a guy that used to be one of the best centers, and if not the best center in the league.
Yeah, for a couple years, for sure.
And we have not seen that in years from him.
But he doesn't need to be that guy. And the NBA isn't set up for a center to take advantage.
But a guy like Yusuf Nurkic, who fit a role perfectly, should be higher than what Dwight Howard's been doing for the past 5.
He could be, but the problem is sample size. So we have a very small sample size for Nurkic, where yes, he was explosive, yes, he meant everything to that team at the time. But you have a guy like Dwight Howard who you can count on for consistency, for boards, for probably you said like 13 points last year. I think we'll see that maybe go up a little bit this year. I'm not expecting the world out of him, but what he is consistently above average, and that's exactly where we have him ranked.
I don't know.
That's why I'm okay with it. I think it's a good fit. Like he said, you have a coach who understands how to use Dwight Howard. We're not asking him to be the focal point of anything anymore.
Totally forgot about the Houston days.
He's an anchor.
I mentioned the Lakers. I mentioned the Hawks. I forgot about those Houston years.
Well, he literally got walked out of Houston.
Yeah, and he had a good year in 2013, 2014 his first year, but other than that, really didn't do much in Houston. But that was, again, him and James Harden didn't go along. And you bring up the notion that Steve Clifford and him have chemistry, obviously, 2007 to 2012. Steve Clifford was an assistant coach with the Magic, and then even with the Lakers, 2012, 2013.
And that 07 to 2012, like, you look at his stats
Dwight was
overall,
one of the best players in the league.
Those were his best numbers.
Yeah.
Best numbers of his career came in that time.
Was it 2009, 2010 when he took him to the finals?
Yeah, I believe they beat LeBron in the conference finals.
Yeah, and that team was built around Dwight's going to be down low, and he can dish it out for three-point shooters. And you have
shoot the three, he tips it in.
You have Rashad Lewis, Hedo Turkoglu, Jameer Nelson, JJ. I think JJ was on that team. I mean, I think even Peja might have been on that team for a little bit. It was like a shitty
version of what we saw in Houston this year.
Yeah, honestly, and that's why I thought that maybe he would. I don't know. I've been disappointed with Dwight Howard recently.
But I think your expectations are too high. That's the difference.
This is the thing that 13. I mean, what he comes in at 13.
It's a slightly above average. That's what you gotta think.
But I think a guy like Yusuf Nurkic brings more to his team than that.
But
and you obviously think that as well because Yusuf Nurkic was higher than Dwight Howard in your ranking.
Sample size and consistency are the two things that I base this off. And I agree. I think that Nurkic should be higher than him probably at the end of this year. I think right now it's fairly close. And it depends what you're looking for. If you want someone to be a defensive monster and to get you a couple points, yeah, Nurkic can do that. Nurkic can bring energy. Dwight Howard is consistency, though. I would trust Dwight Howard in situations I wouldn't necessarily dump the ball off to Nurkic in. And that's the thing. You're not going to ask Dwight Howard to do the same things that Nurkic is doing. That's different teams, different roles, different players. But again, consistency is my game.
You know who I think should be a little higher in this kind of bracket?
And one thing you just go with it.
Marcin Gortat.
Why
I think
should
that he
Marcin
should be
Gortat be higher?
I look at and I know that everything's not numbers, but he's a guy that averaged at least a double-double this season. And I look at guys like Nerlens and Vucevic and even Steven Adams, maybe Paul Gasol, and I go, you know what? Out of those guys, maybe Vucevic might be the one that I put off to the side. I go, who would I rather have as my center? I would go with Gortat. And maybe it's because I'm looking at where it's like, okay, like you said with Yusuf, where it's like, you know what? He does have two of the better guards where Gortat is the same thing. He's got Bradley Beal and he's got John Wall.
Washington had the best 5 starters, unit in the league last year. The problem is that was because, we all assumed Jan Mahimi was going to be better than the trash that he showed up to. And if he can do it this year, then at least, we see it a little bit different. But last year when John Wall, Bradley Beal, when they were splitting time, Gortat got a lot of looks at second unit teams because of their lack of depth at center. So I think that could actually hurt him if
he's going up against
healthy.
The ones.
Yeah.
Well, he just had more time against the twos because they lack depth.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing with Gortat, he's not a guy that's athletic. He's a guy that's just he's kind of more of an enforcer out there. He's a better Zaza. I mean, like, honestly, I mean, he's not a guy that's like super athletic. He's not hurting or helping your team. I mean, he's going to help at least, be tall and grab rebounds and block shots occasionally, but
and
like
be a center.
But yeah, like with Gortat, I mean, he's been consistently giving you the same thing throughout his NBA career. Where a guy like Nerlens, who is higher, who I felt like again like kind of a Willie Cauley-Stein situation, I thought he was going to be higher on this list than 19. And Dave brought up defensive specialist when he was talking about Dwight Howard. That's what Nerlens is.
Yeah.
Is a defensive specialist, and we saw Dallas when they were pairing Nerlens, Dwight, Harrison Barnes together, and even Yogi Ferrell in that starting lineup.
Oh, yeah.
They did really well together. And I think Nerlens is a guy that stats really don't benefit him. I mean, this is a guy that had a 20 per last year, and then coming over to Dallas when he did start, he only played 22 minutes. I think that's going to significantly increase this year. He's going to be up around 27. He's going to definitely start more games, but shooting around 57% from the field, shooting 70 from the line. He was grabbing 6.8 boards per game. He was averaging a block and a block and 1.1 block per game. But it's still something that, I mean, he's not forcing a lot of fouls. He's a guy that is at least putting himself out there a lot. I just think that Nerlens is a guy that is ready for that next big jump in his career. And, he's only 23 years old, a guy that was highly drafted, and he really hasn't been able to just get the shot because of injuries. Joel Embiid, Okafor in front of him. I mean, this is a guy that I felt the 76ers should have kept.
Well, yeah, I think we all can agree on that the 76ers got stuck with Ja. They tanked his own value, and Nerlens was the only one who they could get out of town. Fair enough. But I think the thing that kind of is going to mess them is still he's splitting time because in Dallas, you still have Dirk around there, and you have Harrison Barnes who... Yeah, they slid him down to the 3 for a little bit, but that wasn't really his true position. So, they're going to balance minutes. I know Dirk's probably not going to soak a ton of minutes, but Nerlens can't give you an outside shot yet. So you have to be very careful because he can't play with everybody. Him and Dirk can pair well. Him and Harrison can pair sort of well, but you can't pull another, that's the problem. It's situationally good, and I think defensively, just like you said, though, he clogs up everything within reach.
But when him and Dirk are on the floor, again, when you look at that, what that can bring for a guy like Dennis Smith, where you have two guys coming up for horns, and you have Dirk who could pop out and Nerlens who could run to the basket, and then also Nerlens can take on the guy that Dirk is guarding, or the better 4 or 5, just because he is so valuable on defense, and Dirk really doesn't have that left in him. I just feel like Nerlens is going to be such an asset that's not really there statistically, and that's why I had Nerlens at 19 where he was ranked, but I felt like, when I was ranking him, I thought he was going to be higher than that. And when we're comparing, guys like Nikola Vucevic and Nerlens and Steven Adams, like guys like that who have specific, at least, positions and specialties on their team, Nerlens, Adams, more defensive guys, or Vucevic is more, strictly offensive because he can't play defense at all.
Nope.
I would rather have Nerlens because of his youth. And just because I feel like he hasn't hit that full potential and hasn't, had the minutes to reach that full potential yet. And I feel like once he gets that in Dallas, he's going to be able to do it. And that's possibly why he turned down $17.5 million reportedly.
This is a prove-it year for him. So, yeah, if he can make that impact and truly take over, then, yeah, he could get paid, close to a max deal. I honestly believe he's one of those guys who, if he shines, absolutely. And this team, again... I know we're very high on young players because it's all about potential in the NBA, and that's exactly where we're at. They've got, an aging Dirk, and they've got a guy who can take over at center, again, not direct one-to-one, but he's going to take over at center. He's going to have his opportunity this year because if he can't do it this year, he's going to get another, $10 million contract for a couple of years, and that's nothing. Yeah,
and one thing I want to bring up and going away from Nerlens, because I feel like he's going to take the biggest jump out of all these guys. I think he's going to, from 19, he might hit around that 13 spot next year. I think he's probably going to take the highest jump out of all these guys. But one guy, a couple guys I want to bring up are like Valanciunas, Gasol, Drummond. I mean, those guys, they've been veterans for a while now. Gasol obviously longer than Valanciunas
near 40.
And Drummond. Yeah, I know.
It's
but I'm still saying these guys are at least, still valuable. They're still near that second half of our rankings here.
Yep.
But out of these guys, like, Valanciunas, Gasol, Drummond, they kind of had down years. Paul Gasol really, he had a decent year last year, but still, Paul Gasol wasn't really that effective in the playoffs and wasn't really, he's showing his age.
But he's still got that soft touch. He's still got a good shot. You're not going to get a well-rounded game.
Do you think these guys are going to bounce back is really what I'm saying? Do you see...
Gasol, no. Valanciunas, I think, is very much on the if he gets traded, which has only been rumored for the last 2 years.
Drummond, too. Drummond's been in trade rumors as well.
In trade rumors, but he had such an awful year. That's a guy who I was so incredibly high on because how dominant he was. And that's, kind of a take back because you don't see that in the NBA is these dominant centers who can just own you inside. You can double team. It didn't matter.
You know where Drummond was last year?
Too high.
Yeah,
He was
way
two.
too high.
He was number 2
What?
in our rankings last year.
Again, these were, a little hot take-ish after the playoffs, after their run where they actually, they got swept, they looked incredibly
very
well.
high. We had the Pistons very high last year,
Yeah.
but
Drummond and Paul were 2 guys who were top 10 centers for us last year.
Yeah, and that's why I look at the personal rankings for us, and I kind of look at yours where you have Drummond at 9, kind of maybe, and you can speak better than I can, maybe the same situation like I have Dwight at 9, whereas you and Dave had him way lower than I did.
Well, I had Drummond there at 9 just because, again, he's still young. He had a down year last year, but the Pistons in general had a down year last year.
Still had a 20 per, too.
What was that?
Still had a 20.91 per.
Yeah,
Drummond's still effective.
Yeah.
the problem
But
is he had to sit on the bench because he couldn't play.
Yeah, he was getting consistently good in foul trouble, and he wasn't. He took a step back defensively as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that
say
shows in the
defensively,
fouls.
and he couldn't make free throws. It was just you can't leave the guy on the court.
And the one thing is, you look at the situation with Reggie Jackson where he was hurt, and then you also, they were trying to find, the working starting lineup. Tobias Harris wasn't starting consistently. I just feel like that Pistons team really didn't find their stride, and I feel like Drummond, if he does hit his stride, he can be a top 5 center in this
they're
league.
going to build a fucking wall.
Yeah, they're going to build a fucking wall, Dave, and they're going to need a big guy like Andre Drummond. I just feel like
Him and Boban, man.
He's shown that flash before. And he's still a young guy, and I feel like there's circumstances in which the reason why he fall from 2 last year all the way down to 12 this year. But I feel like it's not like, Andre Drummond's a terrible player.
No, but I mean, he went from like 16 points a game and
he
almost 15 boards.
He was a guy that was a 20-20 guy.
Yeah, that's where we were projecting him to be because that's the next step. He had made the jump from 13-13 to 16-15. But dude is gonna continue dominating. I just another step back, and it's just like, all right. Small step, hopefully with deep breath, and he comes back strong this year.
But I think now having a playmaking guard who can get him the ball, like a Reggie Jackson, who is healthy, that can possibly give him the other boost. Because when we saw Reggie come over, we saw what Drummond was able to do,
right.
at least when the trade was happening. So I feel like Drummond, he's a guy that, he still has that potential where a guy like Dwight, I've been seeing the same shit from him for 6 years.
The other thing I find funny with just comparing last year to this year, in this bracket alone, we've got Vucevic, Valanciunas, Gortat, Adams, Nerlens, Turner, and then there's one more in there I'm forgetting. There's 7 guys in here, 6 to 7 guys, all stayed in the same bracket.
Yeah.
All stayed in the same one and didn't make the jump.
Steven Adams.
Yeah, Steven Adams.
And Tristan Thompson was at 21 last year too. But yeah, I mean, it's just interesting where, I mean, again, like we said, these guys really haven't been able to make. I mean, like we said, I think it was like 23 to about 16. These guys are all similar, and it's really your preference that you take. And I think a lot of these guys win, and at least for me, Drummond won because of his age. Or a guy like Yusuf Nurkic won because of what he was able to do in a short situation where these guys we've been seeing consistently from, Paul Gasol, Steven Adams, Vucevic, Gortat, I think I said Paul Gasol, Valanciunas. Yeah. These guys, we've consistently been seeing the same thing year in and year out for them since they've joined the league.
It's not bad. It's just nothing amazing. It's nothing. You're not a transcendent talent. You're not a standout star. You're just a good center, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and the guy I want to bring up that might be the transcendent star to come out of this is Miles Turner.
Yeah.
A guy that was tied for top 10. Him and Al Horford were tied for top 10. Dave, you had him highest at 9. Ricky and I had him both at 12. Al Horford was an even 11 all across the board on our rankings. They both tied with 60 points. Al Horford got the win, though, because he was ranked higher consecutively on all of our boards. So Al Horford is a top 10 center. Miles Turner barely misses it. How much do you think Paul George not being in there either helps or hurts him? Because Miles Turner, he's got a ton of tools to become a great player.
Well, and I mean, the thing I look at is when it comes to Turner, it's not necessarily Paul George not being there. It's just the fact that this is a kid who, second year in the league, the first year coming out, we talked about, hey, you know what? He's got some knee injuries, and he's going to go through that. Only played 60 games, only started 30 that first year.
Only played 22 minutes.
This was the first time we got to see him start 81 games, play 31, go from the 22, almost 23 minutes per game, up to 31.4 minutes per game, up the field goal percentage, up the from 21% to 34% from year 1 to year 2.
No, to be fair, he only shot like a handful year 1.
Yeah, he didn't shoot that many year 1, but he still got up that percentage, up the free throw percentage. Everywhere
It's
you
everything
look,
you wanna see.
He got better. It got better, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm expecting, and I want to see going into year 3.
Yeah,
You know,
and
I think that's totally reasonable.
I'm just wondering, with Paul George not having a guy like Paul George on this team, a guy who we ranked pretty highly in small forwards, which is easily the top heaviest position out of all the positions we've ranked. How much does it hurt Miles Turner? Because now more of a focus is going to be on him.
Someone's going to have to step up, and if it's got to be Miles Turner, it's got to be Miles Turner.
I mean, on that team, who else would you want to step up? I mean,
I'm not saying step up. I'm not saying step up. He's going to be the guy.
Yeah,
he's going to be the guy that they need to look at. But how many times have we seen a 5 be the focal point of a team? And he had a guy like Paul George, who was a top 3 in the NBA. Now off his team. I'm just saying, how much does it hurt him? I'm not saying that he's not a talented player. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it consistently because, again, he's only 21 years old. He has the injury problems. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think when having a guy like Paul George or a very great guard next to him, he's going to be a top center without a doubt.
I mean, well, he has Darren Collison, who is a solid bottom end, but still solid point guard. I mean, Oladipo can't shoot, but he'll take shots.
I mean, how well is the pick and roll with them going to do? I mean, I don't know.
Like, I honestly think that he's going to put up, 18, 19 points a game and, 12 boards. I think that could be his season this year. He is very good. He's, like you said, probably going to be the focal point of this offense. They got, 3 power forwards who could start, which is the exciting thing. So they're going to have lots of outside shooting. That's the thing. They picked up Bojan, which, again, he's a 3-ball chucker. Great. You have Oladipo, who happy with the ball in his hands, but again, I think he's going to have a lot of time dedicated to him under that net without a lot of trouble.
I mean, he's a guy defensively that's a stud. He's a guy offensively that's growing a 3-point shot 34%, like you said, last year, and that's still increasing, hopefully, with Paul George leaving. I just feel like Miles Turner, he's definitely got...
He's primed to take a huge step.
He is, and he's a guy that...
And it's Indiana betting on him, too. I mean, that's their future.
He's a guy that last year, I mean, in Game 4, he had 20 points, but he was he even in the games he struggled, in Games 2 and 3, it always felt like he consistently either made a big play near the end of the game for Indiana. I mean, he was always the second guy for Indiana, and I just wonder if Paul George leaving will hurt him a little bit. I'm not saying that he's not going to be a talented player. I just feel like a lot of pressure on a 5 might not work well for him.
Pressure, yes, but I don't think the Pacers have expectations this year. I mean, I could easily see Thad Young leading them in scoring. That's not a down. That's just saying, that's where their system is going to end up at. But yeah, I think Miles Turner he's primed for a phenomenal year.
Yeah, are there any guys outside of Miles Turner that you think can make a jump, or are there any guys that you feel like are just going to completely fall off this year? Or is everyone pretty much ranked?
If he wants to retire, I could see him doing that, and the Spurs stretching out the rest of his contract. I think that was kind of the expectation.
Him falling off because he's just not going to be in the NBA.
Yep, pretty much that. Outside of that, Steven Adams consistent, like you said. I think Turner and Nurkic are the 2 guys who are going to jump, and Nerlens. So you've got 3 young guys. I think Drummond could bounce back. I'm not 100%. The problem is our top 10. I feel like there's just a lot of good guys up there, so I don't know how many of them are going to break into it.
And we're going to get to the top 10. Ricky, you want to mention anything else before we move on?
Really, the only one that can break out of the top 10, and really I'm only mentioning it because you mentioned him, is maybe Al Horford.
But let's jump into our top 10 of starting NBA centers, and let's start off at number 10, the Boston Celtic, Al Horford at 10. Number 9, we have DeAndre Jordan from the Los Angeles Clippers. Number 8, we have Brook Lopez, now of the Los Angeles Lakers. We have number 7, the process, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. Number 6, we got Hassan Whiteside from the Miami Heat. Number 5, we got Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz. Number 4, Marc Gasol of the Memphis Grizzlies. Number 3, Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Number 2, Boogie DeMarcus Cousins of the New Orleans Pelicans. And number 1, Karl Anthony Towns, cat from the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I wonder why Embiid is so high.
I wonder
why Embiid is so high on our rankings.
I wonder who ranked him at 4.
Why don't you tell us about that, Dave?
Dave, why don't you tell us about the guy who you ranked at 4 who's only played 29 career games?
Transcendent
in
talent.
3 years.
Transcendent talent.
Why don't you talk about Joel Embiid and why he should be higher?
It's a 7+ footer because his measurement was coming into the league. So he's taller, he's bigger, he's stronger, and he can shoot better than anyone ever expected him to. The years off, I'll admit, the redshirt years were concerning and really, really annoying. But you trust in the process. You saw what he could do last year in a very small sample size. But oh my God, is there hope there? There is so much potential because if you have a big man who can shoot above 35% from 3 and can be as down it with the ball in his hand, as comfortable with he is dribbling the ball. 7-footers normally when they dribble, you're concerned.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid, no. I'll let Embiid run ISO ball. Like, I'm cool with
Come
that.
on.
Oh, I'll do it.
You're gonna put so Kawhi versus Joel Embiid. You're gonna run ISO ball.
I'm not saying that matchup.
Shut up.
I'm just saying he's got a good handle for a 7-footer. And
That's true.
There's literally nothing outside of health concerns.
But that's a
saying-
really big concern.
3 years
when
he's
you've
played
only
29
played
NBA games.
31.
To be fair-
last year he played 31.
To be
it says
fair,
on
he was
ESPN.
31.
He was like
29 around
re-benched
there.
last year after a small injury, and then they're like, "Yeah, there's no reason to worry about this. We're just gonna put you down for the year.
That sounds bad. We're gonna put you down. Come on.
We're gonna let you rest up for next year when games actually matter. When you're gonna play with
Yeah.
the entire process."
Ben Simmons could have played last year. We all know that. And,
Yep.
and same with Embiid. And Embiid, like you said, he was phenomenal. Easily would have been the rookie of the year if he played a whole season.
I mean, I think if he played 10 more games, he would have been rookie of the year.
Yeah,
But
I mean-
some sticklers out there who are like, no, you got to play this many games.
Embiid,
Hey, I am one of those sticklers. I put him at 10
Kyrie
only
Irving season
because
much?
I couldn't put him higher. And I get the whole, like, it was the team's decision, but when you only play 31 games, I can't put you higher than 10.
And again,
I can't do it.
The other big concern was him on a schedule with a lot of condensed games in a couple of days. Now they fixed that problem. The NBA as a whole is embracing Joel Embiid.
They fixed that problem. We'll see how
The
it
NBA
goes.
as a whole is embracing Joel Embiid and the process by stretching out the schedule, ensuring that we end up with no more 4 and 5 days. And I think for the most part, barely any back-to-backs from what I'm thinking. So honestly, I expect a lot out of this guy, and I think that he will deliver on every level.
yeah, I mean, Joel Embiid was fantastic. We can't deny that. Again, though, you mentioned Nurkic in a small sample size. I mean, yeah, Joel Embiid sample size was dominant. He was absolutely dominant.
Say, like,
but it's a small sample size, Dave. I'm just using your
half a
argument
season?
against you. Just
half
using
a
your,
season, but what Joel Embiid did in that time just shits all over Nurkic. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's less than half a season.
It's just slightly less than
It's
half a
still
season.
less than half
Well, he
a
played up
season.
until yeah.
Anyway.
It was because of the back-to-back.
Let's get away from that. What I want to talk about, though, I mean, obviously, Joel Embiid will probably be a riser on this. I mean, he could probably jump over Hassan Whiteside, Rudy Gobert, Marc Gasol. We get it. I mean, he could be number 1 next year. I doubt it. I don't think he will be.
He could be number 2 next year.
He could.
Depends on how many games he
Number
plays.
3
He
maybe.
can jump. He can jump.
Yeah.
If he's able to bring what he did last year, he can definitely jump. I mean, he didn't when he did play. He didn't have a higher per than Karl Anthony Towns, DeMarcus Cousins, anything like that.
But he plays
wasn't
two
far-
sides of the ball.
I'm saying he wasn't far away from that.
I will
Dave.
defend this man.
Chill. We have to move on.
Move on,
We
man.
can't have a Joel Embiid dedicated
I think
segment.
our fans would like
Dave
that.
would love that. Dave
our-
is smiling
Our
ear
fans
to
are
fucking
not
ear.
you.
We've got a lot of Philly fans. You know that.
We do, and the guys I want to mention though is Nikola Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky boldly putting him at 2. Why Jokic at 2?
I mean, I looked at, like, here's the thing, and it all came down to DeMarcus Cousins, because when I looked at Cat, when I looked at Cousins, when I looked at Jokic, I was like, to me, they're all comparable. I mean, Cat to me is the clear number 1, and then it came to, I'm like, okay, Boogie's number 2, but then I looked at it and I went, you know what? Yeah, if you look at overall for the entire year, you see the numbers he had. But if you look at the numbers that he had just with the Pelicans, there's a little bit of a difference there. And to me, I like what I see from Jokic a little bit more from Cousins, only because of Cousins is now playing with Anthony Davis, Jokic is not. And
Cousins
I
got
think that
better when he went to New Orleans. He had
slightly, but
less
he's
usage.
also playing with Anthony Davis, and I feel
Which
like
I think would
that
benefit him.
That feeds into it, and I go, you know what? Going into these rankings, I just liked Jokic a little bit more. Also, I believe had the higher per slightly than Cousins.
Jokic had the highest per I think so far would have checked out of any center at 26.4. But
Yeah.
I mean, again, per isn't the only thing that we're looking
It's
at.
not the only metric. And look, Jokic is amazing at what he does, which is run that offense. And I mean,
Which is
a
so
point
weird to
center,
say at a center.
point center, and from the games he started, he was putting up just over 19 points, almost 11 boards, and almost 6 assists a game. The problem with him is he's a one-sided player. Defensively, he's a turnstile. There's no helping that. But when he's in there running that offense, they were, I want to say, the highest scoring offense, or within the top 3 highest scoring offenses in the league when he was starting. So honestly, his impact to his team was really, really impressive. My thing is, I'm looking at a player who is dynamic, offensive versus your comparison of Boogie, who is a two-way player who is no slouch when the ball's in his hands and a dominant scorer. So that's for me is the fact that, like you said, even when he's playing second fiddle to Anthony Davis, who we call the most dominant power forward,
I don't even know if it's second fiddle. I mean, it's
1A, 1B.
Yeah, 1A, 1B. I mean come on.
We agree.
Cousins isn't like he isn't a Joe Schmo out here. Though the biggest thing with Cousins, and everyone knows it, it's the attitude problem. And again, it's also the foul trouble. Because when you look at his stats, everything increased. Also, his foul trouble increased. I mean, he was averaging about 5.4 or 4.5 a game. I mean, he was pretty much averaging a foul out or almost close to a foul out a game. I mean, that's something that you cannot have out of DeMarcus Cousins.
The highest we've seen since 14-15.
To be fair, he was also, early on in the season, he was playing on a unhappy Sacramento team, which led to a little more fouls per game.
No, but what I'm saying...
But he is known for a short time.
No, what I'm saying...
to the Pelicans and got more per game.
Yeah, on New Orleans, he had more per game. So not even outside of Sacramento. I mean, he was averaging 4.4 fouls a game. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, he was...
I don't know if it's ridiculous.
Whenever I watched a
being
Pelican
big
game,
man.
it was always... The worry was always, is DeMarcus Cousins going to foul out? Is DeMarcus Cousins going to foul out? And
the
then
answer is
Anthony
always
Davis,
yes.
And then Anthony Davis had to take over. So it's just something where... And you also worry about the technicals. Is he going to get suspended?
I think that's a guarantee every year. He's going to be about 15 techs.
Again, it's just something where with Jokic or Cat, you really don't have to worry about that.
See,
And yes, I know you want to bring up the defense of Cat, and let's jump to it.
Yeah.
First player out of this is Karl Anthony Towns, and I'm going to defend it first because I think DeMarcus Cousins is a better player than Karl Anthony Towns right now. I would say that without a doubt. I would say that DeMarcus Cousins...
Are you saying if we're going like 1v1 Cat versus DeMarcus, or are you saying like it's just overall?
I would say if I was building a team...
You would take DeMarcus
and
over
attitudes
Cat?
and morale was turned off.
Okay.
I would take DeMarcus Cousins
So a
skill-wise.
video game. So if you're playing 2K.
Yeah, I would take DeMarcus Cousins skill-wise. But the one thing that Cat does bring is he has, obviously, I would say he doesn't have the attitude problems that DeMarcus Cousins has, but also he's a guy that's still 21 years old. He is absolutely dominant offensively, and now bringing in Jimmy Butler and bringing in Taj Gibson, yes, I know he was statistically the worst center to ever touch the floor when it came to defensive metrics, Dave.
Pretty much, yeah.
However, when you bring a guy like Jimmy Butler and you bring a guy like Taj Gibson in, who have played in the Tibbs system and are going to be starting next to him, I just feel like somehow, Dave, because you have experienced veteran defensive players coming to play next to him, I feel like Karl Anthony Towns can step up a little bit to at least be passable defensively.
I mean, there's a chance. Like the same thing with the meteor hitting the Earth, dinosaurs going extinct. Like there's a chance it could happen.
He's not that
KG did
bad.
say anything is
He's got
possible.
about that same percentage.
I mean,
again,
when you're looking at Cat, I mean, what is it defensively that cannot be fixed?
There's nothing that can't be fixed. There's a basketball IQ problem where inherently he doesn't. And this might be because he wasn't playing true to his position the entire time last season. Mm-hmm. He was obviously splitting time between the 4 and the 5. Honestly, I agree. Taj Gibson will help him out. Taj Gibson is known for his motor. He's known for being a tough defender, and he is happy to go anywhere and pretty much do anything you need. We all expected Thibodeau to be able to turn around the 3 young guys up in Minnesota between Levine, Wiggins, and Towns. Defensively, this is perfect fit. You're going to add in these defensive mastermind. All 3 of them were in the bottom of their position as far as their defense was concerned.
They didn't play defense. That whole team.
They just didn't.
Yeah.
They just didn't. Fine. I will accept that. The problem is that assuming they will get better purely because they're getting older, I don't agree with that.
I'm not saying...
I think, what signs did you see of him becoming a better defender last year? Was there any growth out of him? And I will say no.
What I'm saying is bringing in a guy who is 2 veteran guys in Taj Gibson and Jimmy Butler, him maturing, which will not only help basketball IQ, but he's also going to probably be more stuck to watching film, being around guys who have been consistent
it does
pros.
Set a better locker room environment. Yes.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying just because he's 22, he's going to be a better defender. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the circumstances that he's around,
he's
going to be
better
maturing.
defensively. I don't know if necessarily he will grow to a passable defender level, and he could.
I'm saying get to a passable defender.
Yeah,
because he's not at a passable defender level.
No, he's not.
He's got to get to that level. I don't think it's crazy. And when he gets to a passable defender level, and you're playing next to Jimmy Butler, who's been a lockdown defender throughout his career, Taj Gibson, who has been a very good defender throughout his career, it's going to hide those blemishes a little bit, and that's going to show what he can really do offensively, which is
just bonkers.
And it's better than Boogie. I mean, Boogie is a little bit wild out there when it comes offensively. I mean, he's a guy that can chuck up threes like it's nothing. And that he did come a lot in Sacramento where he did have to do everything. He had the highest usage.
Yeah,
in pretty much the NBA.
We are pairing Boogie back up with Rondo again.
How do you think that's going to do though? I mean,
I think
you're a Rondo.
I think Rondo's going to average like 9 assists
If Rondo does what he did last year.
Yes. You're playing with Anthony Davis and Boogie.
I'm laughing. I think it's
like
funny.
I think there's a solid chance he could average 10 assists again.
Which Rondo do we get? Dallas Rondo, Kings Rondo, Bulls Rondo against the Celtics?
Dallas Rondo only existed because he thought he was smarter than Rick Carlisle.
Yeah.
That was the only issue. Was Rick Carlisle was the coach? He thought he was the coach.
I think you'll get Bulls Rondo, but more importantly, I want to see there's two levels of that. There's Bulls Rondo. And then there's Bulls Rondo against the Celtics. That's like Super Saiyan mode for Rajon Rondo.
Well, there was a little something personal that game,
yeah,
too.
Yeah, there was.
I should say.
And another thing I want to
swept you too.
And another thing I want to bring up with Cat is he still has the athleticism to be a good defender. He still has the wingspan. He still has the size and the speed.
Too.
He's very mobile. So it's not like he's immobile. It's literally about basketball IQ. And I just feel like Tom Thibodeau, who we've praised as this basketball genius, and defensive genius.
If anyone can drill it into him, it is Thibodeau.
And then also playing with a guy like Jimmy Butler, who worked his ass off to be a great defender, and Taj Gibson, who worked his ass off to be a great defender and a guy that the Bulls can rely on, just feel like that could set a nice locker room for him to grow as a defender.
Do you think part of the problem is because he was so gifted offensively, he kind of didn't care as much about his defense while he progressed as a player?
And I think
because that's one of the things I kind of think
and you got to look at when he was playing in Kentucky too.
Yep.
Who was he playing next to? Willie Cauley-Stein, who was
the defensive monster.
I mean, he was a fly swat.
Really, and I mean,
he just jumped up and just started smacking the ball around. And Willie Cauley-Stein, I thought Willie Cauley-Stein, at least watching Kentucky games when they were going 40-0, right? They were undefeated and they lost to Wisconsin. I think that was the one they lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four. I thought Willie Cauley-Stein was the better player when I was watching as a stupid high school. I was like, Willie Cauley-Stein's good. Why is Carl Towns going with one? I know why now, but I'm just saying, like, when I was watching Willie Cauley-Stein, I was like, man, this guy's amazing. Like, Willie Cauley-Stein was unreal defensively. He brought that energy that you need in a center, which is why we're even surprised Willie Cauley-Stein's this low right now. But still, it's something where he never really had to rely on his defense. And when you're in high school, you're not playing defense. When you're in college, you're not really playing defense. When you're coming in the NBA on a shit team, you're not going to be playing defense.
That's the other thing is now he has a reason to be invested because this team now has expectations of we're going to the playoffs and we're building this roster to go up against top teams in the West. So yeah, there's a chance. Yes, he's in the right situation. If there's any situation that would help him grow defensively, he's in it. It's on him to prove it because I saw no progression last year. So I need to see a step in the right direction this year.
And the one thing I want to bring up, kind of maybe to get off the Cousins and Towns thing. Speaking of defense,
it was DeAndre Jordan.
No,
I was going to bring up
our biggest riser, I would say this year, Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert easily. He was 11 last year, I believe. I'm not looking at the last year rankings, but 11 last year. It did help that Gordon Hayward was there, and then you see the kind of the whole team meshing together, and you saw the rise of Utah there. And Rudy Gobert, as well as his own player, both defensively and offensively, kind of came into his own game.
And the thing I wanted to ask you, I'm going to flip it because you asked this about Miles Turner. I want to ask you, the loss of Gordon Hayward, is that going to help or hurt Gobert?
I think offensively it's going to hurt him, but defensively he's still going to be able to be a monster. And I think that Rudy Gobert isn't a guy that is looked to for his offense, and defensively he's still going to be able to be a monster. And I don't think that was affected by Gordon Hayward or helped
still
or
got
hurt
jump
by
at
Gordon
Joe
Hayward.
Ingles.
Yeah, exactly. Dave says there's not going to be a drop off. Yeah, Dave says there's not going to be a drop off between Joe Ingles and Gordon Hayward.
Not that big of a drop off. Not that
going
big.
From All-Star Gordon Hayward to jump at Joe Ingles.
And
not that big of a drop off.
And Ricky Rubio. Don't forget about Ricky.
Yeah, I don't think Rudy Gobert's kind of spot is going to be dropped from him. The thing that I did want to bring up with Rudy Gobert though, since Rudy Gobert is kind of limited offensively, a guy who might have a little more prowess, at least offensively, just because of his athleticism and it is kind of more of tenacity to attack, might be more of a wild player than Rudy Gobert is Hassan Whiteside. And I felt because Whiteside is on a better team, could possibly Whiteside be higher than a guy like Rudy Gobert? And that's something I want to throw out to you guys. Because
I thought about it.
Because Whiteside, I mean, I would say Rudy Gobert is a better basketball player, but Whiteside's on a better team. And, the Jazz obviously losing Gordon Hayward, George Hill. I just feel like Miami, with what they did in the second half, this might be a team, especially with Whiteside being a guy that plays a pretty focal point in that team. He might be able to outshine a little bit more than Rudy Gobert because Rudy Gobert's in Utah, and that's not like a huge market out there. I
originally wanted to put Whiteside at 5, only because like in mine I had DeAndre Jordan 5, Gasol 6,
and we'll get to Jordan.
And Marc Gasol, and then Whiteside 7. I was looking at it and I was going, maybe Whiteside should be above DeAndre, above Marc Gasol, but I ended up putting him 7. He's a guy that after another year maybe could rise on this, but like when it was him, if you're comparing him to Gobert, I looked at Gobert. One thing I thought we were criminally low on him compared to the year that he had. I know that we were coming into last year and it wasn't after the season. That's what these are. I think that Gobert is easily a top 5 center this year, and Hassan Whiteside after a good year this year, could also be a top 5 next year.
Well, Gobert is also, I mean, he showed his growth. Where Whiteside, I mean, we've seen him. He's now 28, 29. We've kind of seen what Whiteside has been able to do. So I think that's one thing that plays into it, too.
But still, he was the dominant force on that team last year. He put up 17 and 14. I mean, come on. We're acting like these are...
Well, Whiteside put up great numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And here's the thing. You know who Whiteside's biggest competition is for that new 5 spot? Dave's boy, Joel Embiid. Because Embiid's not even in the top 5 either. If Embiid has a full season with what he did, I'd put Embiid in the top 5.
To be honest,
I feel like he could jump. I mean, most of these guys here outside. I mean, he's going to be fighting with Karl-Anthony Towns and DeMarcus Cousins. And probably they're going to be slotted at 1, 2, and 3 if Embiid puts up what he did last year. I mean, him, Jokic, Karl-Anthony Towns, and DeMarcus Cousins. Those guys are up there.
That still takes a top 5 spot that Hassan could take.
Without a doubt.
I think Gobert, honestly, I had Gobert and Whiteside as like AB. Like, they're that close to me. And like you said, Gobert isn't counted on for his offense. He is, defensively the best shot blocker in the NBA right now. Whiteside was that last year. Literally, he was averaging 3.7 blocks a game last year.
He was unreal. But when I'm looking at a guy to go one-on-one with a player, I would rather choose Rudy Gobert because, again, Whiteside, look at how freakishly athletic he is. Look how quick he is. And look at his size just in general. I mean, he's a guy that can close out like crazy. He's a guy that can just stuff anything. He's the fly swatter. I mean, him and DeAndre Jordan put up ridiculous numbers. However, those are not guys that I feel are guys that can anchor.
But he can be counted on offense. That's the thing. Like you're talking about. Okay, Gobert took a step forward offensively to like solid. No issue there. Like shooting percentage was excellent. Like he was shooting like 66%. Like that's awesome. But Whiteside's a guy you can actually count to be the number 2 on your team. He is the guy who you can depend on offensively and defensively.
I'm not throwing the ball down. Like, what do you mean?
Put up 17 points a game. But how are we not
DeAndre Jordan's also done that, but DeAndre Jordan's also playing with Blake Griffin. I mean, DeAndre Jordan with Chris Paul can do that. I mean, with Miami,
the Clippers were a team with no bench. That was the reason. Like,
but what I'm saying is these guys who are super and freakishly athletic, you toss the ball up to them, they jump up and they put it in. These guys can grab offensive boards like it's nothing with their freakishly long hands, their freakishly long wingspan, jump it up and then just dunking it over these guys. I mean, these guys have the benefit of just being big. Again, if we're putting them into a system and you have to rely on the guard and the wings and the other 4, I just feel like Rudy Gobert is a better all-around basketball player. I'm not saying one has better numbers. Again, there's a reason why you also put Hassan Whiteside below Rudy Gobert.
I know. Like I said, they're A-B to me. I mean, it's very close.
No, I think the same thing, too. I just feel like Rudy Gobert, after his year last year, who is a guy that could easily win Defensive Player of the Year the way that he can match up with players on the court.
This is very much a show me year.
I agree, especially with Gordon Hayward leaving. I feel like
that's the whole reason. Can he be the captain of this team? Can he be the guy who leads them to the playoffs? And I don't know if he can, honestly, but I'm very interested to see what he can do with this team, with him as the captain, with him as the guy leading the charge.
Without a doubt. I feel like Rudy Gobert and Hassan Whiteside, both, again, like you said, 1A, 1B, I think those guys are both great players, and I think they both obviously bring different things to the court. I feel Gobert might be more of a polished player, where Hassan Whiteside uses athleticism. Gobert might have a longer career just because he is a more polished player. I mean, Whiteside, he might fall off due to injury just because of the way he plays. Hassan Whiteside, with what he plays though and how he plays it, he's been fantastic for the Miami Heat. And I'm not taking that away from him. Another guy who plays similar to Hassan Whiteside that I want to bring into this mix is a guy that you had at 5, Ricky, and that's DeAndre Jordan, a guy that relied heavily on Chris Paul, but Dave was even mentioning what he did with Chris Paul off the court when Chris Paul was injured. So ultimately, what are your thoughts on DeAndre Jordan? We have him at 9. This is a guy that last year I think was fairly high. I think he was in our top 5. He was number 4. Is this a guy that you think can move up this ranking, or do you think 9 might even be a ceiling now with Chris Paul gone?
I think when it comes to DeAndre, he will sit in, like, from next year and years future, he'll sit between maybe the 7 to 10 kind of spot in these rankings. He's not going to be a guy who's in the top 5, but the big thing when it comes to DeAndre Jordan in my mind is I liked what I saw from DeAndre. I like what he brings to the Clippers. I also like what I see on the stat sheet as well. And I know we harp on they don't have Chris Paul. Everything, though, comes down to if Milos comes in and he's as great as a passer as we've all been saying, Clipper fans in DeAndre Jordan's case here.
DeAndre Gordon.
In Jordan's case here, we're going to be saying Chris Paul who? Because
hold up.
Wait.
Not Chris Paul who? Chris Paul who?
No,
Chris
I'm
Paul has
saying
been one of the best players in the NBA.
I'm saying in DeAndre Jordan's case,
when it comes to advanced metrics.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
in
saying
the past 10 years.
in Jordan's case of, oh my God, he lost a guy who gave him the ball a lot. We'll be saying Chris Paul who, because Milos will do the same thing. Not overall. I'm saying just in this microcosm of between him and Jordan.
Sean, you've clearly got something on your mind. Just spit it out for us.
Yeah, one's a Hall of Famer, in Chris Paul, and probably the best point guard of our era.
I'm not saying he's not good. I'm saying
Steph
overall.
Curry's already better than him.
What I'm saying all around. All around.
I'm saying on this little microscopic level.
Steph's the best scorer.
Yeah.
But best
he's
shooter.
also actually
best
won
shooter.
something, which Chris Paul has not done, even though he's been in a team where every single year for the last 6 years, they should have been contenders.
Let's be honest. Chris Paul should have been a Laker.
Well, there's that. Don't even get me started on that.
I need to go to Reddit to pull up the stuff to defend Chris Paul.
No, I understand.
Because
Chris Paul
he's
is
unreal.
a two-way guard. He's a two-way point guard. And, dude, I'm the one who spits a lot of truth about him because
You're also talking to the guy here who had Chris Paul at 6 on our rankings.
Purely disrespectful.
But Kyrie, Wall,
you're ridiculous.
Russ, and Steph above him.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about Chris Paul, the guy who has...
hit a 2020
1,912. Wait, 2020 with no turnovers.
I know.
1,912 steals. He has 2,024 turnovers. I mean, he almost has the same amount of steals as turnovers. I mean, this guy is unreal. There's more that is in here. He led the NBA plus minus last year, second in RPM after adjusting for the things that they do. Led the Clippers to 30-15 record. I'm defending Chris Paul. 30-15 record with
Blake Griffin. Microcosm. I didn't even say overall team.
You're talking trash about Chris Paul.
Yeah, when it comes to him and
30-15
DeAndre
record
Jordan.
Blake Griffin was out in 2016. Around the 90th percentile of players as a pick and roll man or in isolation, the two go-to plays really in the NBA for shot correction. I can keep going if you want me to. I just want to give a shout out to Drop Dat Dirk on Reddit. Real quick though, his career playoff edges, because you're talking about his 2 out of 3. You're talking about him not winning.
You're done. Our YouTube fans have been watching us play rock paper scissors.
21.4 points per game, 9.4 assists per game,
a lot of pretty numbers, Sean.
3.7 rebounds per game, 48.4% from the field, 38% from 3, 25.8 per. 59% true shooting percentage. He's got a 7.7 VORP in 76 games. Chris Paul is fucking better than...
But
how many rings does he got? How many rings does he got?
How many rings does Milos have? He's a 30-year-old who's starting now in the first year.
It's Milos, and he has won EuroLeague.
I said Milos.
No, you said Milos.
You said Milos.
I said Milos.
You did not say Milos.
Whatever. I would rather take
He's won
Chris...
EuroLeague. I would take Chris Paul, too.
I wasn't saying as an overall. I was saying on the general...
You said Chris Paul who?
Yeah. On the
Put respect on Chris Paul's name.
Milos is one of the best passers in the world.
On the general ability that he could pass the ball to DeAndre Jordan. That's the microcosm.
Learn how to say his name, damn it.
Yeah, Milos.
DeAndre. You keep saying DeAndre.
Whatever.
It's all right. That's like me last year. It's fair enough. No, I know Chris Paul is fantastic. And his game impacted DeAndre Jordan's game immensely. But the thing, like Ricky said, is you're getting another a very good passer. I'll just say very good till we see him in the NBA against NBA level competition.
Dave, don't want to overhype him.
The thing is what we've seen out of him is in spurts he can be excellent, but then he has down games. I mean, he's gone 20 points, 20 rebounds, but then the next game he shows up with 4 points, 8 boards. He can't consistently keep it going. He's not the anchor to the team, and he obviously doesn't need to be. They have Blake Griffin there. They're counting on Blake to be the future, and rightfully so.
They gave him the money to be the future.
Rightfully so. The thing is for short spurts, he can be a just absolutely dominant defender, down low, dominant player offensively as well, because he has such a high percentage shot. I mean, he's very close to him, obviously, but his shooting percentage is crazy good.
And this is one thing, and this might be a reason why, Mark Cuban was driving around frantically Houston the night that they locked him inside DeAndre Jordan's house in Houston. Anyways, going away from the jokes, I'm still pissed off about the Chris Paul thing. But the last guy I want to mention is Al Horford any good? Should he be a top 10 center? I mean, this guy can't rebound. Yeah, he can't rebound.
Let's be honest. After talking about all this, everything, I kind of want to put Miles Turner above him. I kind of after talking about everything, I'm kind of you know what?
Miles Turner will have a better
they could both
statistical
be right
season
there
than him, but Al Horford's a better player.
No disrespect to Horford.
I mean, Al Horford can't grab a rebound.
Al Horford.
I mean,
is
the Bulls.
not
The
great
Bulls
at
looked like
grabbing
one of the
rebounds.
best rebounding teams I've ever seen when they were playing Boston.
Dude, all-star Bulls.
Al Horford did not have a great rebounding season. He never does.
He can't ball. He can't grab a board as a center.
He's averaging, just
We're talking about Drummond, who's grabbing 14 boards a game. We're talking
for
about
his
DeAndre
career,
Jordan.
he's averaged 8.7 rebounds. It's not terrible. It's not terrible.
He was also playing next to Paul Millsap for most of his
I'm
career.
just saying it's not terrible. But what he is one of the better passing bigs with a good outside shot.
It's true.
Which is exactly what you need in today's NBA. And I know you guys hate the phrase today's NBA, but deal with it because you need a big who can shoot the ball. And what we saw with him and Isaiah Thomas last year was obviously the key to their success because when you can run pick and roll to the level of success that they could in Boston because Al Horford is who he is, I don't think you can, I don't want to say disrespect him by putting him outside the top 10.
Is that going to change now? They're not going to run.
Kyrie Irving can
Will
create
they
his
run
own
as
shot.
much pick and because here's the thing I always thought, and this is a really small thing.
Yeah.
Is did they run so much pick and roll? Because it's like, okay, IT's smaller. We got to get him that speed around the pick and roll so that he can create himself space.
So with Kyrie Irving,
Kyrie don't need that.
Kyrie can create his own shot, but Kyrie, can still shoot the ball like super efficient, and going to the basket, he's just as good as Isaiah Thomas. So I mean, it's just one thing where I think they might go less away from the pick and roll and more designed screens, and we might see at least Kyrie in more ISO ball. But I still feel like even Gordon Hayward's going to get pick and roll shots. He's still going to get design plays. I still feel like they're not going to change up. What I'm saying is maybe in crunch time they'll go to more ISO ball with Kyrie Irving. But I feel in the grand scheme of things, you're going to see less of. I don't think it's going to be a drastic change where Al Horford's going to become pointless.
Exactly. Remember, this is the only guy who's remaining a starter on this team after last year. Everybody else in this roster has been changed out or replaced. So he is the guy who knows the system. He will be counted on heavily to start the year to kind of get everybody in the groove. The ball will run through him. I think that, for me, that's very apparent. So, like you said, I think obviously Kyrie will be able to create his own shot, but they will run the ball through Horford.
And we are going to wrap it up there. Fun discussion for the center position. We are going to be back next week at the six man. Again, if you guys want to go to patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast and check out the perks and the things we got for patrons, definitely go check that out, patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast.
And if you want to see what a pseudo Patreon podcast would be, go ahead and check out the YouTube page.
Yeah, we got the September one up. About 30 minutes you and Mark talked about Patreon. So definitely go check that out. If you're listening on Block Talk Radio, thank you so much if you gave us that download. If you guys are on YouTube, you can't see us anymore because the camera shut off. I'm a bad host. I don't know how long these podcasts are going.
You just got to get better with these times, man.
I was getting heated with the Chris Paul talk. So.
I mean, we didn't even mention Brooke Lopez, Marc Gasol.
Yeah, it's all
they
right.
both exist.
It's all right. And Marc Gasol's great, and so is Brooke Lopez. We love you. Big fans of the podcast. But anyways, for Ricky Widmer, Dave Oster, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you guys next time.